Welcome to Immigration Uncovered, the DocketWise video podcast where we dive deep into the dynamic world of immigration, shedding light on the latest developments, cutting-edge practice management strategies, and the transformative impact of legal technology. I'm your host, James Pittman, and this is episode 27. I'm joined today by Dr. Angel Contreras Cruz. He is a new PhD from Portland State University, the Department of Technology Management. So Angel, welcome.
Oh, thank you, James, for inviting me to your podcast. I'm very happy to be here. And let's talk about immigration policy.
Absolutely. So Angel just finished his PhD, successfully defended it, and his research is a hierarchical decision-making model to use for use by immigration policymakers. So let's dig into this. I mean, so just Angel, can you give us sort of the nutshell version, just an introduction to what your research on immigration policy evaluation for technology professionals in the U.S. is all about?
Of course. So the idea began after I collaborated on a research paper about skilled immigration in Australia. Because I'm doing a PhD program, I needed a research topic in order to write a dissertation. So after talking with my academic advisor, we came up with the idea of evaluating U.S. immigration policies for high skill or technological professionals in the United States in order to narrow down the scope of the research. So that's why we focus on technology professionals.
Right. And it's super important. Immigration gets so much airtime as a policy issue in the United States, and it's such a multifaceted, field, if you want to call it multifaceted issue policy-wise. But we're going to focus specifically on what U.S. immigration policy should be with regard to technology professionals. I mean, we are a world leader in technology that's been for many decades now, that's been one of the United States' strongest economic areas. And we have, obviously the most cutting edge technology companies in the world right here, but we need people from around the world, the smartest people, to come to the United States to work at these companies. And that requires that our immigration policies and our system of visa issuance reflects, those needs and allows for the best people to come here. So, let's talk about why immigration policies in the U.S. impact technology professionals seeking to immigrate, or let's talk about how do currently the immigration policies impact tech professionals.
Sure. Well, having strained immigration policies affect host countries with their ability to attract and retain international talent. So just imagine that the H-1B visa program has the same cap for the last 20 years or so. So this is a problem because the number of applications for this type of visa, it's increasing exponentially over the last years, but the cap of 85,000 H-1B visas remain the same. There is a competition about among countries in order to keep or attract talent. Like, for example, last year, Canada offered a program for H-1B U.S. visa holders in order to keep the talent in the region. So they offered the flexibility to move to Canada. But those strategies are in order to attract talent in other countries. So a lot of international students, once they graduate, the most common path is to look for an H-1B visa. So if the U.S. is not offering enough visas for international students that graduate from U.S. universities, they need to look for other opportunities to relocate to other countries, and they are taking all their knowledge that they get in the U.S. to their native country or to other countries around the world.
Okay, now you have, we're going to get to your slides in a minute, and I want you to show your slide presentation, but I saw one of the things that attracted my attention was the sort of a lag, let's call it a gap or a lag between the STEM OPT, which is optional practical training, and CPT, which is continual practical training. There's a difference in the number of authorizations for the STEM OPT, CPT granted, along with an increase in H-1B applications. In other words, granting of STEM, OPT, and CPT was going down for a couple years, let's say from 2019 to 2020 onward, while the H-1B number of applications continue to increase. So let's take that as an example. What's happening to those former OPT, CPT students if they're not getting H-1Bs?
So, well, I think this COVID has an influence on this situation. But I mean, the number of CPT applications include both groups, like STEM graduates and not STEM graduates, or STEM students, not STEM students. And the number of applications for STEM programs, I mean, this is my personal opinion, but I think that policies and companies are not giving enough opportunity for recent graduates from these programs. I mean, sometimes when you apply for jobs and companies ask you, like, right now or in the future, are going to need like some type of immigration assistance, and you say yes, sometimes your application doesn't continue. So I think that's kind of like a barrier for international students. When you hit the button and say that you are going to need some type of immigration assistance, it's like disqualifying you from the job. And I think that it's not fair, I would say, because OPT is not like an immigration sponsorship. Like, this program doesn't cost companies to offer jobs to recent graduates from STEAM programs. So you have like up to 12 months of work authorization plus an additional extension of 24 months if you graduate from STEAM programs. So I think you have like enough time to work with your companies, and you need to demonstrate that you are a good fit for your company, and eventually you are going to have the opportunity to upgrade to an H-1B visa. I think that is a little bit of lacking of information from companies. So those companies can create some type of policies that can support international students who graduate from STEAM program.
All right. Well, we're going to look at your model. So you have developed a hierarchical decision model for evaluating the effectiveness of immigration policies. So can you show us and walk us through the model that you developed?
Oh, absolutely. The hierarchical decision model, it's a multi-criteria decision-making methodology. So these type of methods are helpful to evaluate complex problems. And of course, immigration policies, it's a very complex topic, right? It's a perfect example to use this methodology. So what the HTM model offers is that can provide like a different set of alternatives or several decision-making scenarios for stakeholders or for decision makers. So the model relies on experts in order to obtain their judgment. And according to their judgment, you are going to create like a different set of alternatives. The model compares pairs of elements to determine which element is the more important to the model's objective. Because there are too many iterations in the model needs to be divided into different panels according to the area of expertise of each participant. This is kind of like the overall methodology that I needed to follow in order to come up with this model. So I created this model first by reading several journal articles, book chapters, technical reports about immigration policies in the U.S. in order to identify the main objective and also the different set of criteria needed in order to evaluate immigration policies. So the model has 4 different levels. Level 1 is the mission. which is basically the evaluation of the legal alternatives for immigration policies. After that, we have the second level that are called criteria or factors, which is basically the group that is gonna have like a set of different sub-criteria or topics related to that criteria following hierarchical structure.
You extracted the criteria from the literature. So the criteria are things that you came up with based on your reading of the literature and what factors are most important.
Yes, so I did that for criteria and sub-criteria. So I identify all these criteria and sub-criteria from literature review. And after that, at the bottom of the model, we have the alternatives to be evaluated. Basically, the legal options that technology professionals have in order to come to work or study in the United States. Now, this model was first validated by the expert that participated in my study, and then they helped me to quantify this model using a technique called pairwise comparison. So I reorganized the model from higher to lower values. So the people that see the model can identify what are the top alternatives. So those numbers in blue are the top alternatives after the quantification phase. So in this case, the model suggests that regulatory landscape aspects and social aspects are top priorities, but also identify some sub-criteria, which we also call them like policy tools. So these policy tools are ideas on how to guide the evaluation or upgrade of immigration policies in the US. And also at the bottom, the alternative suggests that the government or policymakers should focus on strategies on how to improve or boost the legal alternative identified as top, such as, in this case, permanent resident card and H-1B visa. So after that, I organize the different set of sub-criteria according to the contribution to the model and try to link what is the policy tool intention. So in this case, I organize all the sub-criteria in 4 categories: retention, settlement, attraction, and selection. So that's how I organize the different set of sub-criteria, also using the suggestions from other studies.
And let me just interject a question here. Now, how is this model that you've developed, how is this really filling a gap or addressing things which have not been addressed so far in studies on immigration policy?
Well, according to my findings or to the best of my knowledge, there is not any similar study in evaluating U.S. immigration policies. So that's why this is one of the gaps that we try to bridge or to fill. Like, we are proposing this type of methodologies to evaluate immigration policies because there is any similar study in evaluating U.S. immigration policies. And I think this is one of the main contributions of this research. There are several studies that evaluate immigration policies, but using different approaches. And they're focused more on the economic aspect of the contribution of technology professionals, but they are not these type of models. So I think this is the novelty of my study.
Well, besides the economic impact on immigration, what are the other main considerations that you think have to be, taken into account?
Well, I think the most important aspect besides economic is the social aspect. For example, we saw in the previous slide that the social criteria was ranked as the second alternative. So I think this is very, very important because once technology professionals immigrate to the United States, in order to flourish, let's say, they need like a lot of support. I mean, we immigrants, we are humans. And in order to do better, you also need like integration in the new culture, in the new country. Many of them, or many of us, we have families. So you have to have your family here. You have kids. You have your spouse, your wife. I think having all this type of support can increase the likelihood of first, like a rapid adaptation from technology professionals, but also the probabilities that their contributions are gonna impact positively the U.S. economy. Because I mean, this is one of the principles of U.S. immigration, like bringing talent that can contribute to the economy. So I think that's one of the important findings of this study.
Well, we're talking about attraction and retention of tech professionals, and what policy instruments do you think have the highest effect on attraction and retention?
So I think that having like more inclusive and retention strategies should be one of the top priorities for policymakers. I think that this is one of the findings of my study, like developing policies that promote public support, I mean, from the native population towards immigration, such as providing access to legal services, immigration support, because many people or many immigrants that come to the U.S., they don't know like what is the roadmap in order to secure like a permanent resident card or permanent residency, which is gonna give you like a peace of mind, because in the immigration process there is a lot of uncertainty. For example, when you need to upgrade or when you need to renew basically the legal visa that you have. So I think this is one of the most important aspects to consider. And also during this process, during my research process, I learned about the work that some nonprofits are doing in order to promote inclusivity for immigrants, such as Open Avenues, Welcome in America, and Global Detroit. So I think these nonprofits are doing a very good job in order to promote attraction and retention strategies for immigrants in their local communities.
How are you planning on publicizing your findings and getting them to policymakers? What would be the next step?
The next step for me is to participate in this type of events or like forums, like podcasts. I think that's one of it's an amazing tool. I also want to have like my work published in the media. I mean, I need to start talking to people that works in like in newspapers or radio or TV. And I also want to start participating in conferences about immigration policies. I think this is one of the things that I need to start doing in order to disseminate my work, where the findings of my research can get to the right people. I mean, it's very challenging, but it's something that I mean I need to do because this topic is one of my passions in life. So I think those are the immediate strategies for me to do.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and that's really the reason why I wanted to have you on today is I really think it's so important to give a platform to scholars and particular up and coming scholars who have fresh insights and new thinking on this topic, because, immigration commands a lot of public attention in the media and in our politics and in our culture. But it's a very broad field with many, many different aspects of it. And, the U.S., like I said, and it has best technology companies. We really need the best people. So we should be doing our policymaking based on data. We want data-driven policymaking. We don't want policy being driven by emotion, by pure, just naked politics. We need to have data-driven research. So that's why I think it's so important to get work like this out into the public sphere. Now, let's talk about this. Is a multi-criterion decision-making model, and what is the advantage of using that type of a model, just as a general in general?
Oh yes, well, this is one of the things that you mentioned, that you need data-driven decisions. And I think this type of methodologies can offer that because the experts provide their judgment, and by using some math, you can create like numerical values, so you can rank the alternatives. So that's one of the important things of using this type of methodologies. But also, this methodology aims for agreement. I mean, if you talk about immigration policies, there is going to be a lot of disagreement between, like, let's say, political party A versus political party B. So disagreement is something that is, it's nature, like, right? We can disagree about the things that we like to eat, about the things that we like to read or we like to do. So when you talk about like evaluating immigration policies, there is going to be disagreement, of course, but this methodology looks to reduce that type of disagreement, and it's going to provide different several scenarios where policymakers can analyze not just a single route, but explore different alternatives. So that's the thing about this type of methodologies that provide like several solutions and not just only one type of solution.
And Angel, how did you arrive at this kind of a topic for your research, and what really motivates you as a scholar to focus on immigration policy?
Well, as I mentioned, the idea began after working on a research paper in Australia. So we analyzed engineers that moved to Australia in order to look for job or study. Australia has a point-based immigration system, which is, I mean, some people say this type of systems are more friendly.
Let's talk about that. Let's explain what's the difference between a points-based system like they have in Australia and other places versus the way that it's done in the United States.
Yes, well, the immigration system in the U.S., when you talk about employment, it's called like employment-driven. So in order to come here, you need to have like a work offer from a company in order to sponsor the candidate. But the companies needs to demonstrate that there is a specific labor shortage. So that's the thing. And when we talk about point-based immigration systems, the government evaluate potential candidates, and they give specific points for the candidates based on their age, their knowledge about the language, professional experience, and educational background, among other things. So the more points the candidate have, the higher the likelihood is that they are going to be granted like work authorization or any specific type of visa.
How do you envision this type of research impacting discussions and decisions around U.S. immigration policy? I mean, what would be, your advice to policymakers who might say, well, how should I use this type of model?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, in order to get to the right people, I mean, the research needs more dissemination. So my next steps are to publish at least one research article from my dissertation, and also being able to write some short articles in academic forums and national forums. So that's one of the things. This approach needs to be known by people working in immigration policies, right?
Have you identified particular members of Congress? I'm thinking of Zoe Lofgren or other people out in Silicon Valley who might be interested specifically in this research.
I have contacted several offices, like federal agencies, and also some House representatives. So I invite them to participate in my study, and this is one of the limitations, that I didn't include the perspective from people working in the government, because all of them declined to participate in my study. But I mean, I tried to contact, and I hope that one day this work can be discovered by someone working in U.S. immigration policies, and they can ask, like, okay, how this type of methodologies are useful for policymakers. So after that, I think we can, I mean, not precisely I'm gonna teach them, but I mean, they can do the research and they can learn about this type of methodologies that are, in my opinion, are helpful to guide policymakers to develop new strategies when we talk about immigration policies.
Well, President Biden, back on November 3rd, came out with an executive order around artificial intelligence and immigration. And he's included provisions to streamline the immigration process for individuals who are working on AI in the AI industry. Have you had a chance to review those proposals? And I was interested to get your opinion on them.
Oh, yes. Well, this is one of the things. When I was doing my research, I learned about these proposals. And I think that there is a need to upgrade the profiles for the technological professionals that this country needs. Like, I mean, in the last probably 20 years or so, the companies needed like software engineers, like computer engineers, this type of jobs. And these type of occupations were always the top, like when you analyze data from H-1B visas, something like that. But now I think with the rapid evolution of technology, new professions are gonna be needed, like such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity experts. I mean, in order to continue increasing the knowledge and the competitiveness that this country needs, in order to achieve all of this, I mean, the U.S. relies on immigration.
Absolutely. So let's just get your short list. I mean, how do you, on your short list, if you could summarize, how do you think immigration policies in the United States need to be improved to better support the needs of technology professionals and the broader economy?
My first recommendation, and it's not based on my findings, it's the type of words that are used when policymakers refer to immigrants. I mean, when you read all the guidelines, there is always this word that refers to immigrants such as aliens. I think we are humans, and I think that would be like a good starting point to start replacing some of the words for immigrants. But after that, I think my main recommendation is that immigration policies need to be more flexible. I mean, there are a lot of barriers that immigrants face when they come to the United States. I mean, you need to learn a new culture, you need to learn a new language or improve your the level of English that you have in order to work here. But for example, when you want to consider changing a job, there are a lot of barriers. Like you need to go through this process again of a sponsorship if you want to switch from one employer to another. For example, I've been here in the U.S. for almost 9 years, always under an F-1B student visa. But that, it doesn't matter if by the time when I graduate, I don't have like a job offer. I'm gonna have like 60 days to leave this country if I am not able to get like a job, like a full-time job. So there is and this is gonna be something, I mean, bad for me personally, but I think also for the community and for the government, because I mean, studying a PhD involves a lot of involvement from the government, from universities. I think I was granted almost $70,000 in scholarship, fellowships, graduate assistantship. And if I'm not able to work here and contribute to the economy of the U.S., there is not going to be never like a return on investment of all that money that the government and universities put towards my education.
Well, have you thought about the implications of your research for the companies themselves? What should they be doing differently, if anything, according to your view?
I think that they can work closely with universities, as I said before. Sometimes when you apply for jobs, as a recent graduate and you ask your potential employer if they are gonna provide you some type of immigration sponsorship, I think that for recent graduates using OPT or STEAM OPT, I mean, you don't need sponsorship basically. You just need to work closely, I think, with universities and develop some strategies in order to give opportunities to all the graduates from U.S. universities, which according to some data, there are close to 1 million of international students in the United States. I mean, not giving them the opportunity to contribute to the economy, it's going to be such a big loss, not just for the economy in general, but also once they relocate to another country, they are going to take all that knowledge back with them. And I think that's going to be like a big loss for the U.S.
Well, how can stakeholders in the tech industry leverage your research findings? Are your findings currently publicly available, or how can they find out about your findings?
Okay, well, I'm in the process of finishing my dissertation. I need to make some edits, and it's going to be published soon. I hope that. And it's going to be like a public dissertation, so everyone can access and read my study, the findings, and if they are interested in talking to me, I'm open to discuss the findings, the ideas, or have like a good conversation about immigration policies. So you can contact me via LinkedIn or via email. So yeah, I'm open. I'm gonna be very happy to talk to anybody that wants to have like a good conversation about immigration policies.
Have you found that there are misconceptions or misunderstandings with regard to immigration policy toward tech professionals? And does your research deal at all with combating public misperception of tech immigrants?
Yes, well, one of the things that we found more interesting is that the social sub-criteria, like creating more inclusive policies and also more welcoming communities, I think they are going to be very helpful for the government, for the communities itself, because immigrants needs to adapt to a new country, to a new community. But once they adapt, I think that they can rapidly start making some contributions like publications or patents or starting new businesses. I mean, if you see, like, there are some local or some ethnicities that are growing. So when you immigrate to this country, you also need like your food. You need your own things from your own country, right? So I think that's the opportunity to generate like new type of businesses for immigrants. And by doing that, you can contribute to the economy by creating new jobs, by paying taxes. So I think this is a benefit for everyone. So I think that's a misconception from immigration, that immigration it's bad for the country. But I think immigration is good because, I mean, historically, this country, it's built from immigrants. And to the best of my knowledge, it continue relying on immigration in order to continue being a leader in economy and also in the production of knowledge.
Now, when you were doing your research, I mean, one of the policy underpinnings, let's say, for example, in the perm labor certification process, which is one of the main ways of getting a permanent residency, a green card through employment, oftentimes you need a perm labor certification. So there, a policy imperative is to protect U.S. workers from displacement. I mean, did your research address whether that consideration is that being treated appropriately in our current policy making, framework? I mean, do you think that U.S. The way that the U.S. immigration policies actually affect immigration is actually doing that, and is that a topic that you have addressed?
I didn't address that specific question. I included the option of permanent resident card but for the EB1 and EB2 categories, mostly for self-petitions. So when you do your self-petition, you don't need to go to the perm process. So I didn't include that, and it's one of the limitations of the study as well.
What were some of the main challenges you encountered during your research process? I mean, you mentioned the fact that you solicited input from government officials, but you couldn't get any. What were some of the other challenges?
Well, I think the first challenge for me was English. I'm from Mexico, and English is my second language. So I think it took me up to 3 years to improve my English level and being able to fully understood the methodology that I use. I remember that when I started my PhD program and I saw all these numbers and this type of models, I didn't have an idea of what that basically mean. Um, so I think that was my first challenge, and I mean, I overcome that challenge by doing a lot of reading and talking with experts and friends. So I fully understood the methodology. But talking in particular about the research, the main barrier that I have is to create the panel of experts. So this methodology relies on experts to get their judgment, which basically are going to be turned into numerical values. So I sent almost 500, 600 emails or invitations to experts using different techniques in order to identify this type of experts. And luckily, 60 experts actively participated in my study. Because I didn't have like funding in order to pay for their time, all the experts participated in a voluntary basis. So, I mean, this was something great because, I mean, for example, I had some experts that they work in the field of immigration law. They are lawyers, right? So on average, a lawyer can charge you like a $200 for an hour, like a consultation. And the time commitment for some of the experts were like 1 hour, but some experts really get involved into the research process, and some of them, I think they participated up to 3 hours of their time. So I think that was something very valuable for my research, and I couldn't make this research without the support from many experts that are working in somehow in U.S. immigration policies.
I mean, do you plan to do any comparative study? I mean, you mentioned that you got the idea from working on a study or reviewing a study that was done in Australia. I mean, do you think that, are there any countries, let's put it this way, are there any countries where you think they're doing an excellent job of tailoring their immigration policies to facilitate maximum quality immigration of tech professionals? Which countries are doing it better than we're doing it that you can see? Have you looked at that?
Oh yes, I did a comparison between or among some developed countries that uses some type of immigration policy to attract talent. And I think this finding is similar to my study, to the other findings of the study in Australia, is that immigration policies are missing the social context. Like, for example, when engineers arrive in Australia, they have like access to permanent residency, but they don't have, or they lack the opportunity to work in their areas of expertise. So they start to work doing some type of soft skills drivers. Like, for example, they start to work as taxi drivers or working in restaurants or in some type of services jobs, and they are not fully using all their skills. This is affecting the economy because the government target to bring engineers or to bring scientists or teachers. But what is the why is important to bring all these people if they are not gonna work in what they are experts? So I think that immigration policies are losing the social context. So the people have the real opportunity to work in what they are experts. So I think if they have that opportunity, they can contribute better to local economies.
All right. Well, this has been a very interesting discussion, and I hope it's the first of many discussions I want to have around immigration policy. Certainly, as I said, I'm a firm believer that we need as much data-driven, analysis as possible. Angel, I thank you so much for joining me to discuss your hierarchical decision making for evaluating U.S. immigration policy toward tech professionals. Once again, for the audience, it's Dr. Angel Contreras Cruz, newly minted PhD from Portland State University, with a hierarchical decision model relating to immigration policy. And we look forward to continuing the discussion on immigration policy and how we can attract really the smartest people and the best people to work for our outstanding tech companies that we have here in the United States. And what are we doing well? What are we doing not so well? What can we learn from other countries? These are critical issues if we want to stay as the undisputed leader in the tech area. So, Dr. Contreras Cruz, thanks so much for joining us here on Immigration Uncovered.
Thank you so much, James, for inviting me. It was a pleasure talking to you about this topic, and well, I hope that people enjoy the conversation. And please connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to talk about this topic. I'm very happy to do that.